I can still smell the smoke sometimes, you know? It's not the acrid smell of the fire itself anymore. It's the lingering ghost of my wife's favorite book. The smell of burnt plastic clinging to my suit jacket, even now sitting here in my chambers. That ghost reminds me of what I lost and what I had to do. That smell clung to my robes the day Veronica Thorne walked into my courtroom. My courtroom like she owned the place. She had that same psychotic little smirk, the one she'd flashed when she stole 89 grand from her last batch of neighbors, the one she wore when she poured industrial bleach on Lena's roses, the roses my wife, my beautiful Lena, made me promise to keep alive before the cancer took her, and I know, absolutely know, she wore that same smile when she watched everything I had left of my family burn to ash. But this suburban terrorist made one fatal error, see? She never bothered Googling who she was trying to destroy. I'm not just some random single dad she could bully into submission. Not some easy mark. I am Elias Vance. I've been a federal prosecutor for 15 years. And she just committed arson against the one man in this entire district who had the legal power, the contacts, and the absolute will to annihilate her entire existence. 18 months of psychological warfare, leading to one moment of beautiful reckoning. She thought burning my house down would silence me. She just handed me the match to torch her whole criminal empire. Let me back up and tell you how a respected federal prosecutor ended up watching his neighborhood tormentor face federal terrorism charges. 2 years ago, life was damn near perfect. I was Elias, Thad to my friends, the guy who put away senators and cartel bosses. But at home, I was just Dad. My 12-year-old Chloe and I lived in our modest craftsman house in Cedar Ridge Estates. The biggest crime there was maybe Tia Elena's terrier running off with a newspaper, or the occasional loud block party on a Saturday night. The house wasn't much, honestly. Faded blue siding, white trim that Lena had insisted on painting herself while pregnant with Chloe. But God, it was everything. The morning coffee still tasted better in Lena's favorite mug. Chloe's laugh still echoed from the tire swing I'd hung the day we moved in. 3 years after cancer stole her, every creaking floorboard held memories I wasn't ready to let go of. I was the neighborhood's unofficial good guy, the one with the perfect lawn, the one who coached Little League, the one who helped Tia Elena with her groceries every Sunday. Cedar Ridge was paradise, a place for young families and people just trying to give their kids stability. Then, the devil moved in next door. Veronica Thorne arrived 18 months ago in a massive white Escalade that screamed, "I need everyone to know I have money." Designer everything, hair that cost more than most people's rent, and eyes like a great white shark, dead cold, constantly calculating who to devour next. Her husband worked overseas, oil money, always traveling, which meant Veronica had unlimited time to make everyone else's life a living hell. Within 72 hours, she'd printed business cards calling herself the HOA Compliance Coordinator, a title that existed nowhere in our neighborhood's practically non-existent housing agreement. See, Cedar Ridge technically had an HOA, formed in '87, but it was dead, never properly incorporated, hadn't held a meeting since before Chloe was born. We liked it that way, live and let live, but Veronica saw opportunity like a vulture spots roadkill. She started prowling the streets with a clipboard, that cheap, cloying vanilla perfume trailing behind her like toxic waste, taking photos, measuring lawns, interrogating neighbors. The click-clack of her designer heels on the concrete became the soundtrack of impending doom. Her first target? My mailbox, vintage cast iron, hand-painted numbers that Lena had done during one of her nesting phases. 15 years of Michigan weather had given it character, some chipped paint, but it was solid as my marriage vows. Veronica declared it non-compliant and demanded I replace it within 48 hours or face a $50 daily fine. I'm a federal prosecutor. I smell fraud from 3 counties away. A quick county record search revealed exactly what I suspected. Our HOA had zero legal authority to enforce anything. Even better? Federal employees have specific protections against discriminatory housing enforcement. HOA harassment of a federal employee isn't just annoying, it's a federal civil rights violation, punishable by serious jail time. I drafted a polite but firm legal letter explaining why Veronica could take her fake fines and shove them where her fake smile couldn't reach. That letter should have ended everything. Instead, it started a war. Veronica's response arrived exactly 72 hours later, and it wasn't what I expected. She didn't back down. She declared war. At 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, I stumbled outside in my bathrobe, coffee steaming in the cold air, expecting a broken valve. What I found was Veronica, standing in Lena's memorial rose garden with a spray bottle, systematically murdering every bush my dead wife had planted. "Morning, Elias," she chirped, like committing botanical genocide was as normal as checking the mail. "Just helping with your little pest problem." The chemical smell hit me like a punch to the gut, sharp, industrial strength. I saw the label, herbicide, the kind that could kill a redwood tree, let alone Lena's delicate climbing roses. "What the hell are you doing?" I managed, my hands starting to tremble, and it wasn't from the October cold. Those roses were Lena's heartbeat still pulsing in our yard, deep red climbers she'd talked to like beloved pets. The week before cancer took her, she gripped my hand and made me swear to keep them alive. "We can't have dangerous insects threatening our children, can we?" The shark's smile stretched wider. "I've documented 17 bee incidents this month. Mrs. Rodriguez's granddaughter is severely allergic. Pure fiction. The Rodriguezes lived 3 blocks away and their granddaughter was in college. But I was learning that truth meant nothing to a sociopath drunk on imaginary power. Stop. You're trespassing and destroying private property. Leave now or I'm calling the police." Veronica's laugh could have shattered glass. "Oh, honey, you really don't understand how this works. I'm protecting our community from your negligence." She finished executing the roses and strolled back to her sterile lawn, leaving me standing there as Lena's last wish began to curl and blacken in the moonlight. That night, watching them die, I made my first strategic move. Years of prosecuting criminals taught me that predators like Veronica always escalate. I spent the entire next day installing a comprehensive security system. 6 cameras, motion sensors, cloud backup, every angle covered. The investment paid off in 72 hours. 2:47 a.m. My phone buzzed with motion alerts. There was Veronica, dressed head to toe in black like some suburban commando, creeping through my backyard with bleach and a stack of forged papers, a masterpiece of suburban fraud, complete with fake neighbor signatures and entirely fictional meeting minutes. But she made one fatal error. She'd forged the signature of Tia Elena, whose arthritic hands could barely grip a coffee cup and who couldn't write English beyond her own name. I had everything a prosecutor dreams of. Video, clear criminal intent, forgery. But when I marched into the local precinct the next morning to file charges with Officer Dan Riker, I discovered how far Veronica's infection had spread. "Look, Mr. Vance," Riker said, sliding my unopened evidence folder back across his desk like it contained anthrax. "Mrs. Thorne is a pillar of our community. Church volunteer, school fundraiser. You sure you're not having some kind of adjustment issue since your wife passed?" The metallic taste of rage flooded my mouth. "Adjustment issues?" Riker dismissed me with a sneer. "Grief makes people see threats that aren't there. Maybe talk to a counselor instead of harassing good people." The horrible truth crystallized. Veronica hadn't just targeted my roses. She'd poisoned the entire local system against me. 3 weeks after the Rose Garden massacre, Veronica escalated to attacking my family directly. My sister, Clara, had driven 12 hours for Chloe's birthday. Her beat-up Honda Civic looked like it had survived multiple apocalypses, but it ran, and more importantly, it meant Chloe got to hear stories about her mom's legendary college pranks. Around 6:15 a.m., violent pounding on my door woke me, followed by Chloe's terrified screaming, "Daddy, there's a scary truck stealing Aunt Clara's car." I stumbled outside, pajamas twisted, to find a massive tow truck already winching Clara's Honda onto its flatbed. Vehicle violation? Buddy, the driver, Dale Riker, Officer Dan Riker's brother, a known criminal, shoved a grease-stained receipt at me. "935 cash only. No overnight guest parking. That's when Veronica emerged from behind the truck like a spider sensing trapped prey. Pristine and designer athleisure, clipboard clutched like a weapon. Morning, Elias. Terribly sorry about the confusion, but community standards must be maintained. She showed me a glossy flyer, new overnight guest restrictions. The insane part? Clara's ancient Civic was classified as a commercial vehicle because of a small dent near the license plate. This is criminal harassment, I said, noticing the company logo, Riker Recovery Services. The recognition flooded my mouth. The corrupt cop, the criminal brother, the suburban monster, a perfect triangle of extortion. That afternoon, while Clara spent a fortune on ride shares to retrieve her only transportation, I channeled 15 years of white-collar prosecution experience into investigating this corruption ring. I found the financial goldmine. 47 formal violations filed by Veronica in 18 months, exclusively targeting single parents, elderly residents, and minorities. I found the link between Officer Riker and his brother Dale's illegal towing operation. The conspiracy crystallized. Veronica identifies the targets, Officer Riker dismisses complaints, Brother Dale runs the illegal towing racket. Thousands generated monthly in stolen fees. But before I could expose them, I needed ironclad evidence. That evening, I found Chloe sitting cross-legged on her bedroom carpet. Carefully taping together fragments of a photograph, Lena teaching 3-year-old Chloe to ride her first tricycle. "The mean truck man dropped it when he was being rough," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It broke into 6 pieces, but I can fix it if I'm really careful." Watching my daughter try to rebuild that shattered memory of her mother, something arctic and predatory settled into my prosecutor's soul. These parasites weren't just stealing money. They were breaking apart the last pieces of my family's happiness, one violation at a time, and I was going to destroy them for it. 2 weeks later, Veronica shattered the last line civilized people never cross. She went after my daughter. I was in federal court destroying a wire fraud defendant when my phone exploded with emergency calls. 12 missed calls from Chloe's school. The metallic taste of pure terror flooded my mouth as I listened to increasingly frantic voicemails. "Mr. Vance, Chloe's having a panic attack about strangers in your house. She says men with cameras forced their way inside. We need you here immediately." I abandoned my prosecution mid-closing argument and drove 90 miles an hour through suburban streets. I found Chloe in the nurse's office, pale as death, clutching her rescue inhaler. "Daddy," she collapsed into my arms. "There were bad men in our house. They had cameras and they wouldn't leave." Principal Morales looked genuinely shaken. Chloe had come home for lunch and found 2 men inside. When she asked for identification, they told her little girls shouldn't question adult authority. Then they kept taking pictures while she begged them to stop. The rage that filled my veins felt different this time, arctic and calculating. At home, their arrogance left a clue, a business card behind our couch. Vance Property Assessments, LLC, registered just that morning to a vacant lot address. The certified building inspector was actually Mitch Thorne, Veronica's unemployed cousin, whose only construction experience involved 3 DUIs. The audacity was breathtaking. She'd created a fake company using my own name to justify terrorizing my daughter. That night, while Chloe slept in my bed, I filed an emergency restraining order. Judge Alana Rodriguez, who'd known Lena, granted it immediately. Veronica was forbidden from approaching my family or my property for 6 months. I felt victorious for exactly 14 hours. Wednesday morning, I woke to voices on my front porch. Through the window, I saw Veronica chatting animatedly with 2 police officers, coffee cup in hand, waving cheerfully when she spotted me. Officer Riker looked up from his notepad with the expression of a man watching his pension evaporate. "Mr. Vance, we've got a situation. Mrs. Thorne says you threatened her life yesterday. Pretty specific threats about making her disappear permanently." The audacity literally stole my breath. "That's impossible." I was in federal court all day, then at my daughter's school. Dozens of witnesses. Veronica's performance deserved an Oscar. Trembling hands, tears on cue. "I know grief makes people say terrible things, Elias, But when you told me you'd bury me so deep even God couldn't find the body, I had to protect myself." "About that," Riker interrupted. "Mrs. Thorne filed a counter-restraining order claiming you've been stalking her, following her to church. Judge signed it 2 hours ago." The legal bear trap snapped shut. 2 conflicting restraining orders, each claiming the other was the aggressor, a cluster that would paralyze the courts for months while Veronica continued her destruction. But this time, her sociopathic cleverness had backfired spectacularly. Because filing false police reports against a federal prosecutor, that isn't just local corruption. It's a federal crime that carries 20 years. And I was about to show her the difference between small-town bullying and federal justice. That night, I made the call that would change everything. "Ben, it's Elias Vance. I need a favor." Agent Ben Carter, my law school roommate, was the FBI's best financial crimes investigator. 48 hours later, Ben called back. "Your suburban terrorist is drowning in debt, buddy. Catastrophic financial collapse." The numbers painted a picture of spectacular greed. She owed $89,000 in back taxes. Her husband was working at a truck stop, not overseas. "But here's the interesting part," Ben continued. "She's been collecting HOA assessment payments from your neighbors for 18 months. We're talking about $340,000 that should have gone into a community fund." "There is no community fund," I whispered. "Exactly. Classic extortion scheme with a suburban twist. I called in every favor I'd accumulated in 15 years, a prosecutor's surgical strike. FBI for wire fraud and racketeering, IRS for tax evasion on the stolen funds, the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division for Fair Housing Act violations, since she systematically targeted minorities and single parents. If we can prove systematic targeting based on protected characteristics," Maria Santos from DOJ told me, "we're looking at hate crime enhancements, 25 to life." While federal resources mobilized, I turned to the most crucial element, the victims. I quietly visited 17 households, documenting the pattern of abuse. Tia Elena, who'd paid fees she couldn't afford because Veronica threatened to call immigration on her Marine veteran grandson. Marcus Rodriguez, who'd been paying a phantom pool maintenance fee to avoid a Child Protective Services report. Each story fed the growing case file that would eventually bury Veronica so deep she'd need archaeological equipment to see daylight. 3 weeks into the federal investigation, Veronica must have sensed the walls closing in, because her harassment became deadly. First, the break-in. I came home to find my door ajar, the house ransacked but nothing stolen. Instead, on my kitchen table, a manila envelope marked evidence of judicial misconduct, fabricated bank statements, doctored emails suggesting I took bribes, a forged letter on federal letterhead containing graphic threats that would end my career if anyone believed them. The forgery was good, but Veronica made a mistake. FBI surveillance recorded Mitch Thorne breaking in while Veronica directed him from her car via Bluetooth. The irony was beautiful. While committing federal breaking and entering to frame me, she was creating ironclad evidence of the crime she was committing. The frame-up was just foreplay. The next morning, local news ran a story. Federal judge under investigation for corruption. Then came the call from Chloe's school. Child Protective Services would be conducting a welfare check. Frame me for corruption, trigger a CPS investigation, use my criminal behavior to justify removing Chloe from my custody. The final piece of Veronica's strategy clicked into place with sickening clarity. When the CPS investigator left, closing the case as unfounded, she gave me a chilling warning. Whoever called this in wants to cause maximum disruption. They'll probably try again. People who make false CPS reports usually escalate until they get the result they want. That night, staring at federal surveillance photos of Veronica coordinating with her accomplice, I called Agent Carter immediately. "Ben, we need to move up the timeline. She's escalating toward violence. Why the urgency, Elias?" "Because desperate criminals with nothing left to lose don't just surrender," I said, looking at Veronica's chilling smile in the photo. "They burn everything down and hope to escape in the chaos." The arson happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I was mid-cross-examination in federal court when my phone started buzzing with emergency alerts. The first text message made my world collapse. House fire at 414 Cedar Lane. Fire department responding. I abandoned the courtroom and broke every traffic law. The acrid smell of accelerant hit me 3 blocks away. Fire trucks lined the street, their red lights painting everything in hellish shades. But the scene that stopped my heart was Chloe standing on Tia Elena's front lawn, tears streaming down her soot-stained face as she watched 18 years of memories burn to ash. "Daddy, I got home from school and there was already smoke everywhere. Tia Elena made me stay here and call 911. The fire marshal confirmed it. Arson. ATF was called in immediately due to my federal employment status. Veronica had made her final, fatal mistake. ATF investigators found professional accelerant placement, timer devices, and most damning of all, security footage from Tia Elena's doorbell camera showing Mitch Thorne entering our house carrying a suspicious duffel bag. Mitch was stupid enough to leave his fingerprints on the containers, drop his driver's license in the basement, and use his own credit card to buy the timer devices at Home Depot. By 8 p.m., Mitch was in federal custody, spilling everything to save himself from terrorism charges. Veronica said the judge was trying to destroy her with fake investigations. She said if we burned his house down, he'd be too busy with insurance companies to keep harassing her. Plus, she promised me 10 grand from the neighborhood fees. But the most damning evidence came from Veronica's own phone, which federal wiretaps had been recording for weeks. Her conversation with Mitch 3 hours before the fire was a prosecutor's dream of criminal stupidity. "Make sure you use enough accelerant to destroy everything," her voice crackled through the recording equipment. "Target the basement first, then the kitchen where he keeps all his legal files. I want 18 months of his work against me turned to ash." Then, the line that sealed her fate, "What if someone gets hurt?" Mitch asked. "The kid's at school, he's at court. House should be empty. But even if someone gets hurt," Veronica's voice was casual, uncaring. "They brought this on themselves by not minding their own business." The casual discussion of potential murder elevated the charges to attempted murder under federal terrorism statutes. The sweetest moment came at 11:30 p.m. when a convoy of federal vehicles surrounded Veronica's house with enough firepower to invade a small country. We watched through Tia Elena's window as tactical agents arrested the suburban terrorist. She was still wearing her designer pajamas and perfectly applied makeup when they dragged her out in handcuffs. That arrogant smirk finally replaced by the terror of someone realizing their victims had more power than they'd ever imagined. The last thing she saw before being stuffed into a federal transport van was me, standing with Chloe, watching justice arrive with badges and arrest warrants. 6 months later, the moment I'd been dreaming about since finding her poisoning Lena's roses finally arrived. United States versus Veronica Thorne and Mitchell Thorne, federal court, full media circus. I had recused myself, but Judge Alana Rodriguez was on the bench, a legend with zero tolerance for criminals who targeted families. The courtroom gallery was standing room only. Tia Elena sat in the front row, wearing her best dress and a satisfied smile. 23 families who'd lived in terror, all waiting to watch justice served. When the bailiffs escorted Veronica into the courtroom, orange jumpsuit, shackles, hair unwashed, designer clothes replaced by federal prison attire, she scanned the gallery with desperate eyes. When her gaze landed on me, sitting in the second row, her face went white as courthouse marble. For 18 months, she'd seen me as just another mark. Now she was staring at the federal prosecutor who'd orchestrated her total destruction. The evidence presentation was flawless. Phone recordings, video footage of the arson, financial records proving systematic theft. But the moment that broke Veronica's remaining composure came when the prosecutor played the wiretapped conversation from the day of the arson, that chilling, casual discussion of potential murder. When the recording ended, Judge Rodriguez's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Mrs. Thorne, you discussed burning down a family's home with complete disregard for whether a 12-year-old child might be killed. Do you have anything to say about that?" Veronica's defense attorney frantically whispered in her ear, begging her to stay silent. But 18 months of unchecked arrogance destroyed her impulse control. She stood up, shackles clinking, and delivered the most self-destructive statement in federal court history. Your Honor, I was protecting our neighborhood from someone who refused to follow community standards. Mr. Vance thought being a federal employee made him special, made him exempt from rules that apply to everyone else. Someone had to teach him that no one is above accountability. The courtroom erupted. She had just admitted to federal terrorism and targeting a federal employee, specifically because of his position, federal hate crime. Territory. Judge Rodriguez's voice held the cold satisfaction of someone about to deliver justice with surgical precision. Mrs. Thorne, you have confessed to federal terrorism charges while showing zero remorse for nearly killing a child. Your actions terrorized an entire neighborhood, stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from working families, and culminated in arson that could have murdered innocent people. The sentencing took exactly 3 minutes. Veronica Thorne, you are hereby sentenced to 15 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Mitch Thorne, your cooperation earns you 8 years with supervised release. You will both pay full restitution to your victims, totaling $473,000 in stolen fees, property damage, and punitive damages. The gallery exploded in applause. The sweetest moment came as bailiffs prepared to escort her away. She turned for one last look, searching for sympathy that would never come. Instead, she found me standing with Chloe. Her suburban dictatorship was over. Her federal prison sentence was just beginning. 2 years later, the smell of fresh coffee mingles with blooming roses as I sit in our rebuilt kitchen, watching Chloe practice her driving in the driveway where this nightmare began. The new house rose from Veronica's ashes like a phoenix built of steel and determination. Insurance money, federal victim compensation, and donations from neighbors who'd found their courage created something stronger than what we'd lost. Chloe's bedroom overlooks the memorial garden where Lena's roses now bloom, alongside contributions from every family Veronica had terrorized. Tia Elena tends the garden each morning, her weathered hands nurturing beauty where evil once tried to plant fear. Our personal healing was just the beginning. Cedar Ridge Estates transformed into something unprecedented. Our legitimate HOA, formed 6 months after the conviction, operates with bylaws written by constitutional lawyers and transparency that makes corruption impossible. Property values soared 40% as young families sought homes in the community that fought back and won. The $473,000 in recovered stolen fees funded miracles, solar-powered streetlights, a state-of-the-art playground. Most importantly, those funds seeded the Cedar Ridge Justice Fund, which has helped 87 families across the country escape their own HOA nightmares. The legal precedents from our case, dubbed the Cedar Ridge Mandates, revolutionized housing protection nationwide. Veronica herself serves as a permanent reminder that actions have consequences. Year 3 of 15 at the Federal Correctional Institution, working prison laundry for 23 cents hourly. While her victims thrive in the community she tried to destroy. The victory that matters most happened last month at our 3rd annual community festival. Chloe, now 16 and fierce with Lena's determination, announced the scholarship recipients to a crowd of 600 people. These awards honor kids whose parents never surrendered to bullies, she declared, her voice carrying across faces that had known fear and chosen courage. Because the best revenge against people who try to destroy you is building something beautiful where they left ashes. We didn't just survive Veronica Thorne's reign of terror. We transformed it into something beautiful. Your turn to fight back. Share your HOA horror story in the comments below or tell me, if you were Elias Vance, what is the one thing you would have done differently? Hit subscribe and ring that bell because good people really do triumph when they refuse to surrender. The war for your neighborhood starts with one brave family willing to stand up. Make sure that family is yours.